This is a direct reading from a Globe and Mail article published on May 13th titled, quote, Nova Scotia's RCMP search for missing children, re-examining areas around siblings' home as police plead for tips. End quote. Nova Scotia RCMP's major crime investigators are advising police to return to specific areas around the home of Lilly and Jack Sullivan in a rural hamlet of Pictou County to try and figure out what happened to the children who went missing without a trace a week and a half ago. In a news release Tuesday, Nova Scotia RCMP said they have interviewed 35 people, including those closest to the two children, as well as community members. Police said they received and are following up on more than 180 tips from the public. Local RCMP are being assisted by the Northeast Nova RCMP Major Crime Unit, a branch of the Mounties that investigates homicides, suspicious deaths, and missing person cases where foul play is suspected. Staff Sergeant Curtis MacKinnon of the Pictou County District RCMP said in an interview Tuesday that police are executing plans right now based on input from major crime investigators, including re-examining various areas of interest near the trailer where the children were reported missing. Quote, they may include culverts, wells, or areas around the residence that need to be relooked at. It will probably be the third or fourth time, end quote. At a recent news conference, RCMP would not confirm whether they believe the children are victims of foul play, but they did say it's unlikely the children are still alive owing to their age, weather, and length of time they've been missing. Quote, we'll continue to work all day and all night on this file until we try and get the answers that we need, end quote. Staff Sergeant MacKinnon said during an interview, quote, hopefully we can get those answers sooner than later, end quote. Late last week, police divers scoured nearby lakes and waterways. Police asked the public to contact them with any tips about Lily, 6, and her brother Jack, 4. Their mother, Malehya Brooks-Murray, called 911 around 10 a.m. on May 2nd and reported the children missing from their home on Gairloch Road in Lansdowne. Both she and Daniel Martell, who describes himself as the children's stepfather, have told the media that they were asleep in the bedroom with their 16-month-old daughter, Meadow, when Lily and Jack slipped out of their home without their knowledge. The parents have said they believe the two children put on their boots, slid open the back door, and escaped from the fenced backyard. Police have said they are believed to have wandered away from their home. Staff Sergeant MacKinnon said the force is exploring all avenues. The investigation is still considered to be a missing persons case, he added, with highly trained major crime and forensic investigators. Quote, like all Nova Scotians, we want answers, and we want to know what happened to these children, end quote, he said in Tuesday's press conference. For 6 days, police and hundreds of search and rescue volunteers assisted by helicopters, drones, and tracking dogs combed 5.5 square kilometers of dense forest, steep terrain, and swamps that surround the trailer from where the children went missing. No trace of the kids has been found. Last week, Mr. Martell said he was interviewed by RCMP for 4 hours. He said he also willingly handed over his cell phone and a wireless router from his home to police. He said he planned to do a polygraph test this week. When the children were reported missing, RCMP issued a vulnerable missing persons alert in Pictou County. The following day, RCMP engaged major crimes investigators and sent out a broadcast intrusive alert to cell phones advising people in Antigonish, Colchester, and Pictou counties of the missing children. Police have defended their decision not to issue an Amber Alert for abducted children because they say abduction appears unlikely and the case does not meet the necessary criteria. This is the most recent report from CTV News.
Todd, police are still looking for 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan in Pictou County. RCMP decided last Wednesday to scale back the search, but they insist they're still following every lead. Lily and Jack were reported missing more than a week ago and were believed to have wandered away from their home in Lansdowne Station. Since the initial search started, RCMP say they've covered over 5 square kilometers of heavily wooded rural terrain in the area. So far, they've received over 180 tips and interviewed 35 people, among them those closest to the children, including family. Police have spent days searching land and water, but didn't find any evidence of the children. In a statement, RCMP says they continue to work day and night, and like all Nova Scotians, want answers and want to know what happened to Jack and Lily. Police are urging anyone with information about the kids' whereabouts to reach out. Todd?
All right, Hafsar, thank you for that.
And this is the most recent report from CBC News.
Pictou County RCMP and the Major Crime Unit continue to investigate the disappearance of 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan, and they are asking the public for help. The siblings were reported missing from their home in Lansdowne Station on May the 2nd. It's believed they may have wandered into a heavily wooded area. Searchers spent 6 days scouring land and bodies of water looking for the siblings before calling off the active search. RCMP say so far they have received more than 180 tips from the public, and officers have identified 35 people for formal interviews as part of the investigation, including community members and those closest to the children. Anyone with information on the whereabouts of Lilly and Jack asked to contact Pictou County District RCMP.
And here's another report from the CBC that I watched probably twice. It's a little confusing, but it talks about how the search for Lilly and Jack looks to be underfunded.
When you see a large-scale search effort like we did last week for 2 missing children in Pictou County, you can see it's a major undertaking. But some involved in these searches are calling for changes to make it possible for them to keep doing their work more effectively. Kevin McLean is the president of the Colchester Ground Search and Rescue Association. Mr. McLean, why do you have funding concerns when it comes to search and rescue?
I'd say because we're not really well funded, at least not across the province. I happen to be on a team that is recognized by the municipality in which we reside. That's the Colchester area, where the municipality of Colchester County and the town of Stewiacke recognize the services we provide as essential. So our team is one of the better funded teams within the province, but that's not the case with most of the other teams. There are a total of 23 teams in the province, and funding is generally lacking throughout the province for the GSAR teams.
And so, from best you know, how underfunded do you feel they are?
Well, the provincial government provides each team $3,000 a year, which is the same value that they've been paying each team for about 20 years now. Well, we haven't seen an increase in the payment from the provincial level, and at the municipal level, it ends up being a function of what they can squeeze out of their own operating budgets. So it varies across the province with many of their teams.
Okay, and have you asked for an increase?
Of course. We ask for an increase every year, and as far as I know, every team asks for an increase every year, both at the provincial level and at the municipal level. But oftentimes it's not forthcoming.
Okay, so how does a search like the one we witnessed last week, which was rather large scale, how does it get funded?
So the operating expenses of a search are covered by both the EMO and the RCMP. So the EMO, which is the provincial government layer that funds the search and rescue efforts, they cover our travel expenses to the search. And then all our operating expenses at the search are covered by the RCMP.
Okay, and so who pays for the gear? Is there gear that you still need?
Well, every search member is responsible for outfitting him or herself with their own gear. So they typically pay for their own gear, and it's accumulated over, a period of a year, couple of years, whatever, to get all the equipment that they are required to carry with them when they go out on a search.
So is any gear provided?
On our team, we're able to provide the outer layer, so we provide the coat, the 3-in-1 coat, the rain pants, the helmet, headlamp, those types of things. But a lot of teams, that's not even possible with their operating budgets that they have. So.
Okay, some people might be surprised to learn that, and I gather fundraising then becomes a big part of your life. What kind of fundraising do the groups do? How much of a difference does that or can that make?
We typically budget in the order of $20,000 to $30,000 a year that we try to raise through fundraising, and we'll do various things like traffic control, parade marshalling, volunteer work within the community where we can be funded. We're trying to expand into offering food services at some of the various community events with the use of our food trailer that we have.
And so in terms of training, how extensive is the training? How much funding is required for that, or what would you like to see in that regard?
We ask our members to come out every Tuesday evening. We train for 2 hours every Tuesday at our base in Debert, but we also have special training options on weekends throughout the year. We try to focus on about 4 mock searches throughout the year to give people more real life exposure to a search environment. And then we will also have other training events that go on the weekends. So it ends up being fairly extensive in terms of the hours that we ask our volunteers to participate in the training that we're offering, and also the people that are organizing the training are putting in some extra hours to have it ready to deliver when our volunteers show up.
Okay, and so what would you like to see change then?
What would I like to see changed? I'd like to see a little more funding so that we don't have to spend our volunteer hours going out fundraising, asking for more funding from the general public. I'd like to also see some funding, probably more, I don't know if it's provincial level or whatever, but I'd like to see some command posts set up across the province with probably more select teams that are equipped to be able to handle some of these larger multi-team, multi-day searches that are going on. Not every team of the 23 teams have the manning and the resourcing capabilities to manage those level of searches, but I'm thinking, 3 or 4 more additional command centers that could be expanded in times of need to be able to handle these larger searches would be a nice bonus for the effort across the province.
Okay, and just quickly before I let you go, this latest search was the first time involvement of the new Nova Scotia Guard. How helpful were they in this case? How much do you need them?
I would say the Nova Scotia Guard was helpful in that it allowed us to free up some of our trained members to be able to do more searching. So they took on some of the roles like traffic control and parking and some transportation type responsibilities, which allowed us to free up some of our trained searchers to be able to go back in the woods. So from that regard, I could see it adding some benefit yet.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there, Mr. McLean. Thank you for all you do.
And just to touch on, I just want to warn people that there's a lot of misinformation being spread in this case, a lot of conspiracies, a lot of doctored screenshots that people are getting from Facebook. So I just want to remind everybody, if it's from an anonymous source on Facebook, it's most likely not true. And if you can't verify these claims yourself, please don't share them. So that being said, if you have any information on Lily and Jack, please call the RCMP at 902-485-4333 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. And I will link all that information in the description below. Thank you guys.